Call the February 24th, 2020 City Council Committee of the whole meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Arevalo?
Here.
Brereton?
Here.
Alderman Crawford will be absent. Alderman Frank will be absent. Freeman? Here. McGee?
Here.
Porter?
Here.
Ratcliffe?
Here.
Snow?
Here.
And Alderman Stevens will be absent. 7 present.
Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate your coming out. Up first, under public comment, we have no one registered for public comment this evening. Under public forum, we have no one. And under reports of officers, boards, and special committees, I wanted to bring to your attention the upcoming chamber dinner. The table, as usual, has the city, as usual, has a table. Anybody that would like to join us, please do. Alderman Snow and his wife have already signed up. Please let us know this week. Under public safety, unfinished business, there is none. Under public safety, new business. Under police, we have the Starcom portable radios. Chief Whitty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Belvidere Police Department is requesting authorization to purchase 4 new portable radios. New radios would replace radios that are approximately 13 years old, not in good working condition. 4 radios were budgeted for the equipment line item at a cost of $16,000. As shown on the attached quote from Motorola Solutions, the cost of each radio is $3,695.95. I would like to make a motion to authorize the purchase of 4 Motorola Starcom 21 APX 4000 7 and 800 megahertz Model 2 portable radios at a cost of $3,695.95 each, for a total cost of $14,783.80, using funds budgeted in the equipment line item number 01-5-210-8200 for the purchase of portable radios.
May I have a motion? Motion by Alderman Porter, second by Alderman Snow. Questions, comments, or further discussion concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Arevalo?
Aye.
Brereton? Brereton?
Aye.
Freeman? Aye. McGee?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Ratcliffe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
7 approved.
That would make it unanimous. Thank you. Under B, under fire, we have Station 2 bathroom remodel. Chief Heiser, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Belvidere Fire Department is requesting funding to remodel the main bathroom at Station Number 2. The existing bathroom is now 47 years old, and it's showing signs of deterioration with its plumbing, tiling, fixtures, and overall condition. The department has received 3 quotes from local remodeling contractors. They are as follows: C&H Builders, $22,325.54. Number 2, Turman & Son Construction, $21,775. Number 3, All-American Kitchen and Bath at $25,271.10. Our recommendation is to go with the local Belvidere contractor, C&H Builders, for the bathroom remodeling project at Station Number 2. The fire department, 2%, has agreed to pay $12,325.54 of the expense, leaving the city to cover the balance of $10,000, which was budgeted in the fiscal year 20 capital expense.
Thank you, Chief. May I have a motion to that effect? Motion by Alderman Arevalo, second by Alderman Ratcliffe. Questions or comments? Alderman Snow.
So I don't know, generally speaking, we don't always go with the local people, even though we're, there's only a $500 or so difference. That doesn't necessarily always float, because we have bids on whether it's sidewalks, tree removals, and things like that, that doesn't always dictate. So if you could give me more justification or what the deal is.
Certainly, Alderman. The difference here is that C&H Builders are going to tile all the way up the walls, all the way around, as opposed to the other bid. They're only going up to the wainscot, halfway.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval will, when your name is called, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay.
Brereton?
You don't need to.
I was just wondering why we're doing roll call for these.
Oh, I guess we don't. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'd just like to hear your names. Just gives me a warm spot. Who was the no vote? We have one no vote. Okay. Under item C, fire, again, we have Station 1 upstairs remodel. Chief?
Thanks, Mayor. The Belvidere Fire Department is in the process of remodeling the upstairs administration side of Station Number 1. Up to this point, the project has been performed by a few of our department members. They have completed the demolition, reframed the walls, updated all the electrical, and started to insulate. The next phase is the installation of the heating and air conditioning ductwork. We will need an expert to complete this step. The department has reached out to local contractors and received 5 quotes for this work. They range from $4,850 to $9,312. It is our members' opinion that we go with the low bid from Advanced Heating and Air Incorporated in an amount of $4,850. The expense will come out of the building repair maintenance line item 015-220-6010.
May I hear a motion? I have a motion by Alderman Porter. Is there a second? By Alderman Revalo. Questions or comments? Yes, Alderman Snow.
So on the earlier bid, you had talked about a local group. Granted, you justified that there was a difference, but it looked like Fleming is an actual local company versus the other that's in Love's Park. So just curious if there was anything going on or not going on, or
No,
apples to apples.
it's apples to apples, yeah. Yep.
All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Yes.
I just wanted to, before we move off of public safety, address the elephant in the room here. I don't know where City Hall is so packed tonight. I don't know if people are here because we're doing the budget or if it's because of the Channel 13 news story. And I think people are curious as to if the city is going to address it.
Well, we had no one here that signed up for public comment. So typically, if someone signs up for public comment, we allow them to speak. There was no such discussion on the agenda this evening, and we cannot add agenda items in midstream. However, if anybody has would like to forward this or something for a discussion at a later date, feel free to do so. I'm just following am I following the rules correctly, sir?
You can discuss anything you want to at a committee meeting. You cannot take action on anything not on the agenda.
Okay. So is there something that you wish to add to the discussion tonight?
I would like to add to our upcoming agenda a discussion about this and let people know that if you want to speak, there's a piece of paper you need to fill out to come up and speak at public comment if you have things you want addressed.
Okay. I think we're back in the same place. Moving on. Under Finance and Personnel Unfinished Business, there is none. Under Finance and Personnel and New Business, there is none. Under Budget Review, General Administration, Capital and Personnel, that will take the largest part of this evening's discussion. Would the council entertain looking at number 5, the other categories for those 2 items before we start the budget, or you just want to do the budget and we'll catch that after? Chief?
Mayor, did we finish up the second remodeling request?
All those in favor of the second remodeling signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. So, council, by show of hands, would you want to take the last 2 items on the agenda before we go into the budget discussion, or do you want to do the budget discussion and then catch those at the end as they are scheduled currently? Do them first. Show of hands. Well, that's a majority, so we'll take them first. Under number 5, other, under A, grant sub-award agreement between Region 1 Planning Council and the City of Belvidere. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Snow. May I have a second? Second by Alderman McGee. Additional questions or comments? Yes, Alderman Snow.
So as I read through this, this is basically just an agreement between the city and the region to work together. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, quick, another quick. So
Alderman Snow.
are we committed financially to any funds or anything like that that I missed or didn't? It's just a big, long lawyer draft of,
No, it's simply a grant sub-agreement between us and Region 1 whereby they'll provide funding for us to conduct work on our census.
thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Under B, Sidewalk Cafe Amendment, may I have a motion to approve? Alderman Arivalo, second. Alderman Freeman. Questions, comments? Alderman Snow.
So, back to when this first went through, I'm not a big fan of this. And I think it's a shame that all the other bar establishments had to put their beer gardens in when they could have just done it on the sidewalk in many cases or out in their parking lots. Just tossing this out there that the areas where this can occur must have fairly good-sized setbacks. Could not the business owners actually purchase the property? We vacate that portion of the sidewalk and let them get taxed on it, pay the real estate tax on it, and it becomes their responsibility to maintain completely, or I'm just a little, again, not a big fan.
Okay, let me address your questions. Number one, we had one bar owner that put in a beer garden. Number two, about having people purchase city right-of-way on the sidewalk so that then it becomes their property, so then we lose access to the sidewalk. Just sounds like a really bad idea. Any other questions or comments? Alderman Porter?
Well, I think I brought this up the last time. I'm not a fan of just having a sidewalk cafe just for the purpose of alcoholic beverages. You know, the definition of cafe is normally associated with food, and I'm all for a sidewalk cafe in any part of the town. I mean, you see them up in Wisconsin all the time where they're associated with restaurants, and they're very popular in tourist town, and it's the kind of thing that we need, you know, in this town to bring people together, families, where they can get together and have lunch and dinner outside, you know, during the warm weather. So there's really nothing in here that I see that specifically says that they have to serve food, and I would like to actually see an amendment to amend the ordinance to provide that they be required to have a full food menu, you know, to have a sidewalk cafe, so they're not only serving just alcoholic beverages, but serving food. So I'd like to go ahead and just make the motion to amend it to include the requirement to have a full menu, in-house food menu to go along with the alcohol.
Can I get a comment from another alderman before we entertain the amendment? Alderman Freeman?
So there is in here, trying to find it right now, there is a provision that it does have food. I was a huge proponent for this, as everybody knows, the first time, and I still am. I think they should have food, otherwise it just is a beer garden, but a full menu, I don't know about that.
Well, that creates an issue, because a full menu is a very difficult undertaking for a couple of clients that are on the sidewalk. I think that let me explain what is going on, okay? Most of the food vendors that we have on Buchanan Street, particularly the ones that Russ has, have approached all of the bar owners and are willing to give them menus so that they will deliver food to anybody that would be in a sidewalk cafe. So they're working together to be able to utilize all of the food choices. We also will welcome food trucks, but imagine, if you will, have you ever been to St. Charles? Do you see what they do there? They have sidewalk cafes up and down the streets. Prior to doing that, they had the same kind of challenges that we had about sales tax revenue Well, after they have done that, they not only attract huge crowds throughout the good weather, but they have solved some of their revenue problems from the sales tax. I would agree with you that these are not designed specifically for people to sit there and drink. I think that everybody will have food to offer, and there are suitable, first of all, you can't just jump into the sidewalk cafe off the street. You have to go into the establishment and go out through the establishment. They have to be fenced and separated from the street. When we discussed this the first time, the end-up be-all of that was we lost a restaurant, a Pointers, that was going to go right here on State Street behind City Hall, like they have in Marengo. They had already purchased all of the things that we were requiring to put the beer garden in, and they thought that they would probably do 75% of their volume in food. So I think to preclude and tell somebody that maybe just Sandy over here doesn't have food except for microwave pizza and snacks. So is that her full menu? And you see what I'm saying? It's a slippery slope. So would you still want us to add an amendment to this to require whoever has a sidewalk cafe to serve a full menu of whatever their food choices are in their restaurant?
Well, let me ask this. Are there going to be minors allowed in that area? I mean, if it's just for drinking, I'm just looking for a place.
Accompanied by their parents, just like they would be if they went inside a bar. Okay, does that help? Yeah. Okay. Any additional questions or comments? Yes, Alderman Brewer.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, put this on the agenda.
I had it put back on the agenda because it was time to bring it back because, quite honestly, the last time around, there was no reason for this to fail. There was some testimony here that proved to be not exactly truthful, and the people who made that testimony went out of business. And we acceded to their demands, and I think if you've been to a stroll or if you've been to any of the things that we're trying to do in downtown Belvidere, this is just a natural progression of entertainment and fun for families. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, sorry I didn't chime in a little bit earlier, but Mr. Porter, if you look at item N3, alcohol served or consumed within a sidewalk cafe shall only be served and consumed in a plastic cup, clearly identifying the retail establishment in which the alcohol is purchased, and must offer food. They're required to offer food as part of their sales.
So, yes, sir.
Well, the first time this came around, I was kind of undecided about it. You know, I'm a fan of the bars and eating outside and all that, but the more I think about this, you know, Sandy at Buchanan, she had to spend all that money. Russ Codwell had to spend all that money. Coach's Corner had to buy a parking lot. So I don't think I can support this.
Well, Coaches bought the parking lot in anticipation of being able to do this. Sandy, unfortunately, before we were able to bring this before the council, embarked on her expertise over there. And to tell you the truth, that started the revival of downtown, is the beautiful beer garden that she put in there. Yes, Jana?
There's a lot of mentioning to the beer gardens that are special uses. I do just want to make a point of clarification. Is the beer garden special uses that Sandy and Coach's Corner got, they're not just for being able to sit outside and drink. They're also to have the live bands, the bag tournaments, roast, all of the activities. It's not just for the purpose of drinking outside. It opens the door for numerous other activities where this is just a sidewalk cafe. I just wanted that clarification made before it keeps going back and forth.
So anybody that comes forward and wants to add a sidewalk cafe will have to get a special use permit? Or what will be
No,
the process, Gina?
special use permits are only for private property. Zoning is only for private property, not public property, which is the sidewalk cafe. That's why it's not in the zoning code. I just wanted to clarify that the beer gardens that are special uses are not just for the purpose of having the cafe. It's also for bands and bags tournaments and pig roast and all the other activities that happen along with them. Those are part of that.
Alderman Snow?
Along with it, and I'm not familiar with all of them, but I think Concordia wound up putting up a beer garden of some sort, if I recall correctly, wouldn't swear to it. And then what used to be Minahan's, and then Jersey's, and now it's Molly's. they have a small one. I can't
Correct.
imagine they're having pig roast and bag tournaments and their stuff, but they had to do the whole beer garden in order to have people to be able to go outside, and which I assume partly was to facilitate people going outside smoking and drinking.
Correct. One of the big drivers is the no smoking inside, so they want a spot outside. The special use is not for a beer garden. The special use is for outdoor commercial entertainment. Outdoor commercial entertainment includes, beer gardens, bands, all those activities. That's why it opens the door to allow them to do all of that stuff.
Alderman Freeman.
So I think Alderman Snow is getting sidewalk cafes confused with beer gardens. These are not beer gardens, they are sidewalk cafes. Just like Russ Caldwell put in at the firebox, though he did enclose it in glass, I guarantee you this summer, there's going to be a whole lot of people sitting out there eating and enjoying the weather while they have their meal from the firebox. And yes, the firebox serves alcohol. So why not let Nico's fence off an area or any other new establishment that people can sit outside and enjoy a sandwich and a drink and enjoy the weather? Well, I mean, I don't understand why you can't differentiate a beer garden from a sidewalk cafe.
Well, and there's another thing to consider here. Hopefully, as we go forward in this community, we realize that sometimes we have had stringent regulations when we really didn't need to have them. And they barred commerce. They kept us from becoming a more attractive place for folks to come. And I think you kind of learn from, and the comments that I have heard, Russ isn't upset that we will have this ordinance again. Sandy will always be somewhat miffed by it, and I don't blame her. But look what she did. It's a beautiful place. And she doesn't even really serve food except pizza and snacks. So I think this enables, we have people that are investing a lot of money in downtown now, and they're investing it in nicer places. And I think that this only makes sense to give them an opportunity to do this. And it's certainly, if somebody drives into town and they see people sitting out convivially in front of establishments, it only tells them that things are happening in Belvidere, and let's see what's going on. Yes, Alderman Snow.
And for some reason, and I might be wrong, and maybe it was just in discussion, I thought at one point in the previous version that was the fact that the revenue source for the restaurant needed to be at least 50% food, or maybe that was just discussed. I just remember hearing something along those lines.
This is the identical ordinance as was introduced last time. There has been discussion on various different types of ordinances regarding 50% food, 50% alcohol sales. And you always get into record-keeping problems with that and everything else like that. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yes, Alderman Reevalo.
I think I agree with the cafe. It entices more people to come to the downtown area and more people to enjoy the weather, especially in the spring and summer. I think it's a positive forward to go with the city to do this. I don't see what's negative about it. I see it as a positive, more investment, and people just get to enjoy outside.
Alderman Freeman.
I think we should do whatever we can to encourage growth here in Belvidere and to encourage people to come, and it's just growth.
Thank you. Alderman Snow.
So right now, currently, somebody can have an outdoor cafe, they just can't serve alcohol. This just allows for the alcohol. What are the permits, fees associated with the permit to do an outdoor cafe? And then what would it be, or can we get extra money for the alcohol portion? Just putting the discussion out there.
Okay, what would you like to get for an outdoor cafe in addition to a liquor license we charge $10,000 for?
I don't know what the current fee is for the regular cafe.
The sidewalk cafe is an annual fee of $75. And keep in mind that it's actually only good for, I don't have the dates right in front of me. I want to say it's something like March 1 or April 1 through the end of November.
So is that annually renewable?
Yes.
Okay. Would that satisfy everybody's need for charging somebody more? Yes, Alderman Snow.
Well, I don't know that maybe to serve alcohol, maybe we bump it up to 150 or an additional rider on the, for the alcohol. Just tossing that out there. And I'd also like to know what the police chief thoughts are on this, if he wishes to weigh in.
Yeah, I think if, kind of like we have with other establishments, it's families that are enjoying, meals and having a drink or two. I don't see and haven't experienced much, if any, issues with that type of an environment. That the beer gardens isn't something that we necessarily get a great deal of calls to, and something that I know several aldermen have made comment on would increase revenue, would increase potentially growth downtown, and would be, it just add to the environment downtown.
Growth increases revenue, period. We've seen it happen already. Unfortunately, we've spent an awful lot of time with gaming parlors, which we have way too many of. And so, this is an opportunity, and I agree with the chief. We're trying to become a family destination, where families can sit outside, on the sidewalk, in the sunshine, and enjoy downtown Belvidere. So, thank you. So, any more comments before we take a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Can we take a voice vote just to make sure that we didn't make a mistake? Roll call vote, just to make sure we don't miscount.
Brereton,
No.
Freeman. Aye. McGee,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Ratcliffe. Snow,
No.
Arivalo,
Aye.
5 in favor.
Okay, motion is passed. We'll look forward to City Council for final disposition, which then takes us back to number 4, Finance and Personnel. New business under A, Budget Review, General Administration, Capital, and Personnel. Turn it over to our Finance Director, Becky Tobin. Ms. Tobin, the floor is yours.
Okay. Is this on? Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Marty.
Is that Marty? That's great. Plan, okay. That's funny. I know. This might be boring for a lot of you. Hopefully you don't fall asleep. Okay, your first document was on your desk tonight. It's a one-pager. It's colorful. It's your big legal size. Let me blow this up for those of you who do not have it in front of you so you can see what I'm talking about. This is one sheet of a larger spreadsheet that I do that kind of lets me do a cash flow analysis throughout the year so I can see how we're trending in all the departments and in all the line items. So there's really 3 numbers on here that I want you to be aware of. Let me see if I can make this even bigger. This is just general funds. This first number here that I want you to see, that's in the orange, is the projected revenue for the year, which is $19,157,391. In the budget process, I had anticipated $18,962,233. So revenues are trending a little bit higher for the current fiscal year. So the next item, line item, or number I want you to see is our second orange number here, which is what our anticipated expenditures for the current fiscal year are trending. $18,419,591, which is under budget from the $18,931,833. So that is also a good number. I'm anticipating us to end the year with a balance in the general fund of roughly $9 million, which for us is almost exactly 6 months of reserves. So I use 1.5 million a month. So that will be 6 months of reserves. So I just wanted you to see this as we go forward and talk about next fiscal year. And I do have, like I said, I have about 20 other pages that go with this spreadsheet, so if anybody ever wants to look at it, more of the fine detail, I am happy to send it to you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, the next one we're going to look at is the general fund revenues. Pull this up again. So the first page is your summary. Obviously, the yellow is the one that we're looking at for the projected for fiscal year '21. You'll notice, and I'll talk about this more in detail, but you'll notice a transfer in from the reserves of 1.2 million right here. Part of that 9 million, I have set aside at least 1.2 million of that to transfer into capital fund for Logan Avenue. If you remember, Logan Avenue is in the process of being redone. Construction will be next summer, '21. It's $2 million. So 1.2 million I have in your general fund reserves that's going to go to capital to help pay for that project. So as you look and see that this number looks really big at almost 19 million, remember that 1.2 million of it is reserves. All right, so we can go into page 2 here. Let's see, I can shrink this down a little now. This is your property tax. Per your vote back in December, property tax has not changed, and this will be the 3rd year in a row. So your property tax for general fund, corporate tax right here is still the $1,769,385. Just a note, though, I can make this a little bit bigger. Just so you can see your EAV, after the recession, how it has started to go up, which is what we want. Our estimated EAV for next year, or for this levy, was 345 million. So that is a good sign. You want your EAV to continue to increase. That's your estimated assessed value of property. Okay, next page. This is our hotel motel tax. We don't have much because we really don't have many hotels. We have America's Best. It's very little, as well as the Belvidere House. So that revenue is pretty much status quo. We have our auto rental tax, which has gone up slightly the last couple years. People are renting automobiles, so we've budgeted a little bit higher for that. If you have any questions as we go, please let me know. This is your municipal infrastructure maintenance fee. This is part of that telecommunications tax, which I've talked about before, that continues to go down. We don't have as many landlines as we used to have with the cell phones. With the regulations that the state have on this tax, it continues to decrease every year. So I'm projecting even lower for next year. State income tax. This is actually going up next year. Some of my estimates come from IML, the Illinois Municipal League. I rely on their expertise. And they give us what we should use as the dollar per capita for each person. So they have told us to go with $105 per person, and our current population is still 25,585 until the next census is done. So that's the number we use. So we're looking at the $2,686,425. Home rule sales tax. This is your 0.50% sales tax that started last January. I am anticipating this to be a little lower than I had budgeted last year. The closing of Shopko hurt. That's a lot of tangible items is what that sales tax pays goes towards, and almost everything in Shopko's store is a tangible item. So I would say a good portion of this is Shopko. So I'm anticipating it to be closer to 101.1 and 30,000 than the 1.2 million. Your municipal sales tax, it is holding steady and going up slightly, which is what we like to see. Just so you can, I've talked about this before, if you go back and look at 2008, pre-recession, we're about at the same sales tax revenue as we were back then. So even though it's going up, we lost so much sales tax during the recession. Realistically, if the recession hadn't happened, your sales tax numbers right now should be closer to 5 million. Sales tax to developers, we don't have that anymore. Here's your local use tax. So this is your purchases outside of Illinois. This is your shopping on Amazon and paying tax now. Most of your online purchases are being taxed. And it's a flat 6.25% that gets collected by the state, and then the state sends a percentage back to us. So we're not really getting our true Belvidere sales tax, online sales tax amount, but that will change effective January 21st. Marketplace facilitators are required to collect state and locally imposed sales tax instead of the 6.25. So anybody in Belvidere that purchases online, instead of it being the 6.25, it'll be the 8.25. So we'll see a higher percent in sales tax, and then the local use tax will go back down a little bit. So it should even out, and then we should get a little bit more on the sales tax side. Locomotor fuel tax, this is the 2-cent tax on gas that went into effect September 1st. This is holding steady. We have 17 gas stations that pay this tax. But I always think it's interesting, out of that, 22% of that revenue is coming from your gas stations at the Oasis. So realistically, 22% of this money is from people that don't even live here, which is what we want. We want people that don't live here to be paying these taxes. Your replacement tax, this is a corporate tax that the state collects and then in turn is given back to the city. This fluctuates every year a little bit. It's a little bit higher this year. That's part of the reason for our revenue increase, but they're anticipating it to be lower next year. So, your replacement tax distribution to pensions, so that same amount that comes in, we send right back out to a portion of it to police and fire, pensions, as well as Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, and also to the library. Your business license fees. This is where your secondhand stores, your home occupation permits, your taxi drivers, your sandwich signs, your auctioneers, that kind of thing. Here's your liquor license fees. Most people have a Class M license. We no longer have a Class A, but there's people that still have been grandfathered in with it. We have one establishment still with a Class B, which would be just beer and wine. We have a few catering licenses out there. And then it's hard to anticipate, but we try and budget for any new liquor license, which are $10,000. Here's your amusement machine fees. These are your gaming machine fees. It is $500 per year for each machine. So up until this year, if an establishment had 5 machines, they paid $2,500. Now the state changed where they are allowed to have a 6th machine. So we are anticipating that revenue to go higher, that not all establishments, not all of them can fit another machine, but we'll have quite a few that'll be getting that 6th machine. We've already had some come in. court fines. This kind of goes up and down, but I will say it's down quite a bit this year, or I'm anticipating it for next year. The police chief could probably talk a little bit more to the influx of, or how the ticketing works. And I also know the city attorney, there was a change in the fee structure as well that I think might have something to do with this, correct?
There was a slight change in fee structures, but those amounted to the court costs and assessments that are kept by the county and the state. The only change on ours was when we reduced our minimum fine from $100 to $95.
Okay.
So it was not a drastic change there.
Okay.
The number of tickets that are being prosecuted in court are significantly down over the last 6 months to a year. That does not necessarily mean there's fewer tickets being written, it just means there's fewer that have to go to court. So I can't speak to actually how many tickets are being written, things like that.
Maybe everybody's just being really good. I don't know. Compliance, there you go. But it's definitely decreased. Parking fines, we increased those fees back in 2018, so that's why there's such a jump in 2019 going forward. Seized vehicle, this one is also down a little bit, maybe because there's less tickets as well. Usually it's $300 for each seized vehicle. Engineering fees subdivision, we plugged this in, but as a just in case. Here's your video gaming. So we trend on average about $30,000 a month. So we're at $360,000. Here's your cable franchise, which is down slightly, and I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of people are going away from cable and using other forms of, whether it's your Roku or your Hulu or, whatever it would be, but I think that's a reason for some of the decrease. No Comcast revenue this year. Your death certificates and your birth certificates, about the same, no big changes. Your accident and fire reports, a little bit lower, I just go with an average. Annexation plat fees, if we were to have any, which we have not in a while. Your tipping fees are down slightly. These are the fees that are paid by William Charles per ton. A lot of it just has to do with the construction and the projects that are going on. When I-90 was having all that work, I mean, obviously the tipping fees are a lot higher. These are our fuel charges. These are the revenues from the gasoline purchased by outside organizations. These are what we bill the county, Council on Aging, Water and Sewer, the Park District, everybody who uses the city gas pumps. Here's our interest income, which has been significantly higher the last couple years. This year I'm actually anticipating closer to $200,000. But the interest rates are decreasing, so I'd rather be safe than sorry, a little bit conservative here.
I just had a quick question about the tipping fees. We don't only just collect from William Charles, right? There's other pits here that we collect tipping fees from.
Go ahead. The Pease Quarry, and then there's going to be, or is that the new one? Which one's going to be the new one?
What new one?
Is there going to be a new one? Is there one coming? Or maybe
He's
not?
started a new dredging operation,
That's what-
and that's not up and running yet.
Okay.
We lost about $100,000 a year proposal from Plody because the council voted not to take over that from the county. And so they renewed a 10-year agreement with the county.
Well, it never came to the council for a vote. We never had that opportunity, but didn't we have a new one out there on Ibsen Road that was
No,
dredging only?
that's not a new quarry.
The little, yeah,
Well, the Jack Pieces mentioned the one across the road.
yeah, not that one, but the other one across.
That was for a batch plant to
Right.
be at the existing quarry. So it's not a new quarry, it was the batch plant, is what that latest vote was. So you have the old Elmer Chicago Stone Quarry on Ibsen, that you guys recently voted for the batch plant hours on. Then you have the Jack Pease dredging quarry across the street, and then William Charles. Jack Pease is a significantly smaller quarry than Elmer Chicago Stone and William Charles, so it's not going to make much of a difference because of the size. But the latest vote you had was not for a quarry, that was existing. Yep.
Alderman Snow.
With the governor's infrastructure, we don't anticipate any of that coming through anytime soon, that it would help the quarries out. And that we're just tossing that out there.
I'm not aware of anything.
So far, we have been promised, Belvidere and Boone County have been promised $140 million in the 6-year infrastructure plan. The only thing that we know for sure is they're going to fix the road out by Black Hawk Bank, and that starts next month, in March. That's the only thing we've been notified of. So, to put that in perspective, widening State Street 4 lanes to Belvidere was promised in the previous 10-year infrastructure plan for the state, and in the 10th year, we kind of wondered when that was going to happen, and they told us, well, it's not on the list anymore. So then there was a new list published, and $140 million allotted to Belvidere and Boone County in the 6-year plan. I would probably say don't everybody hold their breath.
All right, next we have our miscellaneous revenue, which includes the pull tabs, the banners, our building rents, or I should say the parking lot rent from the Leith, or for Leith Building, the rent from Growth Dimensions, things like that. Here's that operating transfer in. This is where I just show 1.2 million from reserves being transferred to capital for Logan Avenue. We go into police. Here's the property tax levies. As we've talked, the levies all stayed the same again for this year, so no increases. The grants for police, we got the IDOT traffic grants and the Department of Justice VEST grant. A lot of this I think we've already gone through. The sex offender registration fee, I think when police went through their budget. Their miscellaneous revenue. There's your fees. Fire department property tax, same as last year. Pensions. Grants for fire. They're hoping, we didn't want to budget any. They're hoping on a couple, right? That's right. We'll just be really happy when you get them. Miscellaneous fire, these are the inspection fees and the plan reviews. Here's road and bridge. This is our levy for road and bridge, as well as the amount that from Belvidere Township. The same as last year. The sidewalk driveway lot grading, that is now being collected by community development. Some miscellaneous revenue there. That's payment for the street department mechanics to perform labor on other department vehicles. Expense reimbursements, these are just the insurance claim reimbursements. Let's see, we don't use that line item anymore. street lighting, there's the levy for street lights, same as last year. We're almost done with revenues here. Our utility tax revenues. These tend to fluctuate a little bit. Weather has a lot to do with them. Obviously, when it's cold in the winter, people are using more gas. When it's hot in the summer, people are using more electricity. So I've trended this down just a little bit. This is the utility, this is the electric portion.
So, the expenses reimbursement for our insurance claims reimbursement? What types of insurance claims are you talking about there?
These are generally if people have hit a guardrail or a street department vehicle gets damaged during traffic signals, things like that, where our insurance is reimbursing us for an expense that we have to incur to fix it.
Okay, so is there an item on here, like there's been, as of late, like police cars that have been hit by other people that we should be getting money back from their insurance? Is that included in this?
I can get that for you. I mean, it's part of that line item. Let me see, where am I now?
Becky, most of those would be subrogation through our insurance company, wouldn't they?
They do, but then we in turn receive.
Get the deductible back.
Well, we get the deductible back, but if it's such as the streetlights and things like that, or if it's something that we fix, we
Right.
get the check. Right.
I'm talking about squad cars specifically.
It depends on the expense side of the street department.
Right.
Expense that we pay for might fall for 5,000. Then on the other side, you don't see it as much, right? Then we get the insurance reimbursement for that 5,000, goes through that, but it offsets that expense.
And, yeah, and it fluctuates. That's why it's just, the 10,000 is just a plug number. If you look at the actual for fiscal year 19, it was over $84,000 in reimbursements from our insurance. The year before that was $34,000. So it just kind of depends on what happens on the damage.
Like 3 or 4 signal poles hit this year. Or we just had one over the weekend again, so.
I can get you a breakdown of it if you wanted to see it.
No, we've had some police cars totaled, and it hasn't been the officer's fault, so the other driver's insurance should have covered
Right.
those expenses. So I was just wondering if that was supposed to be included here or if it's in a different spot.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times we'll get paid out, and then they'll go after that insurance.
Correct.
And then,
We would submit that to our insurance company, then they would go after the driver's insurance company and get subrogation through them. So they get reimbursed that way. They'll usually get us our deductible back at that point as well.
let's see, where else am I at? Yeah, so utility tax, yep. Gas. Here again, it's weather-related. For the most part, obviously, the cost of a therm has something to do with it, too. I mean, if you go way back to when, if you can remember when your gas bills were excruciatingly high, not like they aren't still, but when they were really high. I mean, you go back up to like fiscal year 9, when it's, over 500,000. We had some years where your revenue was 430,000, those really, really cold winters. And then we've had some more mild winters, so it just depends. And the price of gas is down, yeah. So, telephone, this is part of that telecommunications tax that we talked about earlier, how people are using their cell phones and everything, so the amount that we receive is less. So, this number continues to go down. Anyway, okay. All right, so that would be it for revenue side. And we're going to flip to your expenses.
So you got to leave that open.
On to the expenses. All right. Speed it up. How many people got sleeping yet? All right, on to expenses. This is our summary page. Which we have this is actually 3 pages of a summary page. You will notice on our 3rd page, towards the bottom, we have added Buchanan Street strolls. So we do have some revenue line items and expenditure line items. Yep. Yes.
I did have one question on that. It looks like we're operating at a $5,000 loss for the strolls. Maybe this is a topic for a future meeting here, but if there's something we can do to, negate the losses and maybe, at least break even.
Well, here again, I was very conservative in how many sponsors we would get. I'm optimistic that that number will end up being a 0, just by the response I've already had from some businesses, and Gina has just in the last month or two since we've been working on the strolls. I didn't want to overestimate, so I'm optimistic that that will be a 0, but I just wanted to be cautious.
Well, it was a startup, and we did 4, right?
We did 4, correct. We have 9 scheduled for this
We have
year.
9 scheduled, and there was some expense involved in getting it up and running and doing those kinds of things. But yeah, Beck is pretty sure that we're going to end up either even or gaining. So, yes, Alderman Freeman?
So on the utility tax revenue was $1,935,264. At the bottom of page 3, the utility tax was initially incorporated for the street department. And this is all zeroed out for this year and next year, as not receiving any of the utility tax money. So I'm wondering, A, why, and B, the utility tax then just gets sprinkled around different departments, when the police department might receive $500,000, the fire department might receive a couple $100,000. Is that how the utility tax is now working?
We've moved all the big projects to the capital fund now instead of the general fund. So, for example, like the 1.2 million that we're moving over, portions of that would be the utility tax. So yeah, it's rolled into the general fund. We had to do that quite a few years ago to help pay for the police and fire pensions. It's just one of those things where in order to pay bills and to pay the pensions and the roads, that it just gets lumped into the general fund. But because it's so many of the big projects that Public Works has coming down the pipe, they're not just 1 year, one and done projects, which we kind of had been doing out of the general fund. We really need to be budgeting for them and setting money aside, so we decided to move everything to the capital fund. Can I go out there and tell them to be quiet? It's really distracting.
What's going on out there? What's going on out there?
There's a group of people on opposite sides that are having a conversation.
Okay.
Can you ask them to quiet down a little bit, please? Thank you.
Yeah, can they go to the lobby?
Because we found the police incident was supposed to be brought up tonight and discussed. So now the media is getting that from the people out there because you guys won't bring it up.
Okay.
If you let them talk, it probably won't know why it wasn't put on the agenda.
Alderman Snow.
So when Alderman Porter brought up the Buchanan Street, and I realize it is running in a deficit, or the way the budget looks at it right now, but I would assume also too that you wouldn't directly see it, but there would be additional revenues from sales and other stuff. And again, I wanted to give a kudos to Gina for heading that up and being so instrumental in doing that.
It's going to be good. Definitely a positive. Yeah, like I said, even if it were to end up costing the city $5,000, I mean, the return for the number of people downtown and spending money and visiting establishments, that would greatly make up for it. But like I said, hopefully that's going to be a 0. Your first line item for revenues, or for expenditures, I'm sorry, would be your salaries for elected officials. So status quo for just about everybody. Your next line item would be salaries for your admin, non-union. So, which at this point I have plugged in 2.5% increase, which is exactly the same as what your unions will be getting per their contract. And we can talk about salaries later as well. I have another spreadsheet, or you would have received another spreadsheet. Health insurance, not too much higher than this last year, budget-wise anyway. We had a small
Alderman
increase.
Freeman?
So on the health insurance, the library and its employees, the city pays for that separate? It doesn't come out of the library's budget of their slice?
We pay for it initially on this side, but you'll see in a different line item that they pay us back. So the city does not pay any of their health insurance.
Don't worry, I pay for my own.
We have dental insurance. Here's our group life insurance. This is the $15,000 coverage for each employee. Here's that health insurance reimbursement that we received from the retirees as well as the library. Unemployment, we pay that as it comes up. Like I said, we haven't had to pay unemployment from this line item anyway. I think we did a few years ago in police, but it's been since 2011 since we've had to pay it out of general fund, admin. Meetings and conferences, down slightly. Subscriptions, education materials, bumped it up just a little bit. Repairs and maintenance of buildings. This is your janitorial, your disposal, your alarm system, non-scheduled maintenance, that type of thing. Repairs and maintenance of equipment. These are your copy machines, printer maintenance. Legal. It's all your city attorney's funds. Other professional services, we still have to pay Azavar for all their revenue recovery, and I wasn't sure what to do with the mosquito management that was approved last year. I had talked to Brent, and I figured I would leave that up to you all. If you wanted to leave anything in there for this next year, if you wanted to make it higher, if you wanted to make it zero, that is up to you. What I plugged in was one application, which is what was last year.
I would suggest 200,000, and if you don't use it, roll it right into the capital improvement for streets.
Alderman Porter?
Yeah, did we get any feedback from the public, positive or negative, whether that mosquito spraying actually worked?
We received feedback, both pro and con, probably more pro, but we did get the con also that they were disappointed in the fact that we were actually spraying for mosquitoes. But we did get some positive comments back. Because of the way the weather worked out and the time of the treatment, hard to say if it was more weather-related or not, although we did have a fairly wet summer season, and the one treatment seemed to take care of it, so.
Alderman Snow?
And I think because we didn't have anything in place, we hit that mosquito hype, and then by the time we reacted, they sprayed, and it was already starting to diminish because of weather. It would be my assertion, but I think it's a good thing to keep it up, personally.
So I'm not sure if you, like I said, this is only one treatment, since that's what we had, whether we wanted to make that higher or lower, I will leave that up to you.
So what's $45,000?
Pardon?
$45,000?
The mosquito is $8,125.
Per treatment, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how many treatments ultimately would base on rainfall, Brent?
Based on weather conditions last year when they were here, their presentation, I think they indicated they estimated perhaps up to 4 treatments
Yeah, that's
during
what
the
the
season.
private side guys, every 3 weeks, 12 weeks in summer. So it might be an idea to keep, if we're gonna go ahead with it, to keep 32,000 in it. Although I will tell you, I had pro and con. Some people don't want that stuff sprayed, because they're kids, they worry about their kids, and, we make the election before we had the city doing this, to use a private business here in Belvidere, to do it, so, I don't have a problem with it. I do think that some people don't want that sprayed around their kids. That's what feedback that I got was.
We can always come back to that.
Alderman Snow?
I personally think we probably ought to go ahead and get 2 treatments, or have it budgeted so Brent can jump on it and not be worried about coming to us for an approval.
Why don't we put $35 in, $35,000 in there, so that's 4 treatments. And if we don't use it, we don't use it. Does that make sense? Everybody in accordance with that?
So do we need a motion to do that, just to amend this? No.
No, not at this point. Okay, well, we'll keep going. And you may say differently once you see the bottom line, too, so. Utilities and telephone, this is where the increase is where we had to budget for the new phone system with the county. That's where you see the 23.5. The codification, this is your Muni code and the updating of the code books. Other communication, this is the cell phones, tablets. Office supplies. This is your computers and hardware and software, all the supplies. Trying to also keep some numbers in there as we migrate to the county doing our IT, so trying to throw a couple plug numbers in there as well. We also have our new ADP software.
And a word on our migrating to the county for IT after our ransomware attack 3 weeks ago. Part of the issue, and 15 years ago, there was a proposal made by an alderman, remain nameless, that we should have a server farm then to serve all of the governments, as well as bring broadband. And so now 15 years later, we're getting smart. And quite honestly, they have 3 servers up there, so if somebody like ransomware attacks again, they unplug the one server and put the backup server in, and then we don't lose data. So it makes sense, and actually over the long run, it will save us money. We used to always buy hours with Entree in a bank of hours when we had stuff that Mike couldn't get to or didn't have the expertise to do on computers, but it makes ultimate sense, and there will be an agreement forthcoming. We found out when we looked at the phone, combining the phone systems, that it was actually going to cost all of us less annually to do it that way, and it makes ultimate sense. More security, less cost. Okay?
This is gas and oil. This was the line item that was created a couple years ago per the auditor's request for the purchase of the gas.
And do we anticipate that big of an increase?
Well, if you'll notice, when I had budgeted for fiscal year '20, we didn't have a full year of data yet from fiscal year '19. So now seeing the actual for '19, which is the 195, I really under budgeted for '20. So this is a much more realistic number. This is other supplies. This is your probation cleanup and supplies, community service work. Your miscellaneous expenses, which include, it's a little bit big, it's hard to see. That might be too small, let's see. This is your RMAP contribution, what we spend for Hometown Christmas, Sister Cities, Heritage Days, our RMTD subsidy that we pay for down here, the fair, those types of items. It did get really small, didn't it? Operating transfer out. So this is everything that gets transferred out to the capital fund. You have your fire truck lease payment. This transfer to capital, the vehicles and equipment, this was everything, and we'll get to that as well. For the capital requests, I did plug them in here. That doesn't mean they have to stay here, but I just wanted you to see it with all those items plugged in. So you have your fire truck lease, which we have to do. You have your transfer to capital for vehicles and equipment that were requested by your departments. We have your transfer to capital for the road and stormwater projects. 1.2 million of that was Logan. The other 215,000 was other items that Public Works had. And then you also have your debt certificate for City Hall that we have to pay for. So that's your total that would move from the general fund to the capital fund, if you were to approve all those expenditures. That's our property tax for the audit. Stays the same. That's our expenditures for the audit. Property tax for IMRF, for retirement, that stays the same. Replacement tax, I still need to go back and I needed to unhighlight that red. I didn't mean to do that, so it shouldn't be red. This is our expense reimbursement for IMRF. This is just the amount that comes back from the community development. Back. Yep.
So I'm just curious, the debt certificates for City Hall goes back to '05?
Correct.
And we pay a little over $64,000 a year?
Correct.
What was that for, this building?
Mm-hmm. It was the renovations for this building.
And it's like a 20-year?
Correct. Yep. This is our IMRF premium expenses. As I think I've told you, the IMRF are the rate that we're required to pay. Your employer portion went up significantly January 1. We were paying 9.36, and now we're at 11.32. So that's the big jump for retirement. And then I anticipating it, you know, I don't have the numbers for next June or January yet, so I just have to do an estimate, but I'm estimating that it's going to go up again. Hopefully I'm wrong. Here's your FICA and Medicare. That's the tax levy portion. This is your expense reimbursement for the FICA taxes that water and sewer pays back the general fund and community development. Library's portion of the FICA taxes that they pay us. And that's the FICA expense. And there's Medicare. That's your property tax for the insurance liability. And your expense for the insurance liability. We've been really fortunate. Our insurance rates, our liability insurance, workman's comp, has stayed relatively steady the last few years. So water and sewer do pay a portion of that. Water pays 16% and sewer pays 19% of the total expense. And then general fund pays 65%. Here's public safety building. This includes the salaries for 50% of, this is your records clerks, your dispatchers. They're in the middle of union negotiations right now, so it's I kind of have a plug number because I'm not exactly sure what they're going to settle at. I have an idea that we're in the ballpark, but which is why you see that number, but it's still an unknown at this time. FICA and IMRF for those same employees. This is all the other contractual services for PSB that we pay. This is their health insurance, the liability, any building expenses, supplies, a 911 payment for new equipment that went in there. And then there's always miscellaneous. Something's always coming up with that building that needs to be replaced. This is Fire Police Commission. These are your psychological exams, as well as the physicals. This is the commission's rate, as well as the attorney fees, those types of things. Civil defense, this is the tax levy this comes in. This is what pays for the maintenance that we have on the sirens, the tornado sirens. Let's see, we got landfill. That's the property tax we receive, which is $50,000. Our expenses, if you recall, landfill, most of this expense is landfill number 2, so we pay the county. This coming year it'll be $50,000, and then the county pays the bills for the landfill. Some years it's higher, some years it's lower. The rest of it is the monitoring at landfill number 1. Brent's gone through that. Same with forestry, he's gone through that. How we were able to bring our trees down, tree expense. Council on Aging. Portion that goes to Council on Aging for the transportation program. The total that we pay to them is $41,000. It's just out of 2 separate line items. Demolition nuisance. Planning department services. The only thing left coming out of here right now is Planning Commission and then the Regional Planning Commission, the R1 part-time planner that we utilize. Here's your economic development. You have the $55,000 that we pay Growth Dimensions. Here's the rest of your the amount that we pay for transportation through Council on Aging. And then the downtown facade program, which we started last year, which was 5% of the video gaming revenue that became available for a facade grant program, which was very successful and very popular. 5% of the $360,000 for next year, it came out to $18,000 if we keep this grant program going. Tourism expenses, $1,000 in the past had gone to Northern Illinois Tourism. We've had some issues with Northern Illinois Tourism doing what they're supposed to be doing, so we'll see about that, but it is in the budget for tourism. We had some other ideas as to how that money could better be spent. And then the mural maintenance paid to the Art Council.
Just a quick question on that one. Has there been any, I haven't heard any updates on that Route 20 historical route thing. Has there been any updates on that?
So, oh, God.
Hello.
I'm usually not that loud in the microphone. The signs are up. The Route 20 the organization that's based in Massachusetts, they have spent the fall and winter moving into a brand new office that is also going to be a convention bureau for Massachusetts and kind of kick off the Route 20 at the starting point out there. So he's been very busy getting all that stuff set up. So now there is an official mailing address and an official office and stuff. And then we're hoping this summer that there'll be more kickoff activities now that he's all settled into his new space and has funding sources approved and stuff like that. But our signage is up downtown, and we continue to monitor the organization's activities so that if there's anything we can share or piggyback on, we are doing.
Historic preservation. This pays for the brochures, the awards banquet, our advertising, things like that. Here are the line items for the strolls. So our first line item, this includes the vendor fees. So these are your food vendors, your craft vendors. Here again, we were somewhat conservative, I should say. I was somewhat conservative, but hopefully it'll, be even higher. Here's your sponsors. Our goal is for the 9 strolls that we have a sponsor for each stroll to pay for the cups. We have a sponsorship form, so we were asking $500, and then they get their name on the cup for that stroll. So we're confident that we are going to be able to get all 9 strolls. We have people really excited about wanting to advertise on the stroll cups. And then entertainment, I was somewhat conservative here, but I'm optimistic that this number is going to be higher as well. And the sponsorship application, they can they can sponsor one band for $500, or they could sponsor a whole day of entertainment for $1,000 plus $250 for kids' activities. So we've already had a couple local businesses sponsor an entire stroll and want to sign us over a check for $1,750. So if we can keep that going, then we'll be in good shape. Here's our miscellaneous revenue. Here's the revenue that we generate from the cup sales, any T-shirt sales if we go that route. This assumes selling 800 cups a stroll. That could be higher on some, could be lower on some. It was just an estimate. Here's our expenses for strolls. This includes but not limited to the cost of the bands, the kids' activity, live art, that type of thing. Our stroll supplies, this is the purchase of the cups, the wristbands, the signage. And the miscellaneous, this includes the porta potty rental, any advertising, that type of thing. These last items that were under the utility tax, these are a couple of the public works projects that were left in this budget. The Poplar Grove Lawrenceville Road is actually moving to the capital fund. So since that's going to be an ongoing project more than 1 year. All right, so I'm done with that one. Whew. Pardon? Oh, okay.
So the Bellwood Detention Pond, Brent, can we get an update on what's going on with that?
Yes, the Bellwood detention pond is basically to the point that we can go out to bid. However, the contemplation on the Bellwood ponds is the burden that we would be, the material we'll be digging out to create the ponds and to expand the pond and on the high school property. That material is going to be used to cap the brownfield property downtown. So we are still working on a potential user of the brownfield property and what they foresee doing with that property, to see if we can still do that. And we're supposed to have, hopefully, that resolved here in the next week or two, and then we'll have direction to know. We've got the brownfield grant has been unfrozen, so we can now proceed to work with that. And we've also received direction here in the last couple of weeks from EPA that they're going to require us to do a liner with 18 inches of clean fill on top of the liner for the cap. We had hoped to be able to do a 12-inch soil above the liner, but they want to see 18 inches. So we work out the details with the potential user down there, and then we'll be able to proceed with the projects, because right now the Bellwood and where we're going to go with that material, they kind of go hand in hand at the moment.
Alderman Snow.
Becky, if we could go back to page 11, just a curiosity question regarding the chamber membership that was 220, now it's showing up as 0, and I was just curious, is that just a typo or what the scoop of it?
Page 11?
65?
Okay. I don't think we get charged for that membership anymore, is what I understand. I don't see it ever in our expenditures.
Okay, I was just curious, it, went to 0.
I wasn't going to ask for a bill from anybody, so I've just left it alone.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, the next sheet is the general fund summary. It's a one-page that just kind of summarizes everything we just talked about, and there's really one number I wanted you to look at. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see that balance. I know it's hard to see. It's the balance that says $251,571. So after everything I've showed you, this includes capital and everything, this is what your balance is. The only reason it looks this way, it should not look like we're flush. The only reason it looks this way is because Brent has only budgeted $215,000 worth of work, because the rest is coming out of reserves for Logan Avenue. So normally, like if it was last year, that number, that would be negative $1 million, because normally Brent would have $1 million to $1.2 million in projects. So that's the only reason it looks that way.
And keep in mind, too, we're talking a $2 million project for Logan. We've identified West Harrison, that's 2.6 or 2.7 million. We've identified that storm sewer overflow and the reconstruction of Fifth Avenue. That's over $4 million. So we've got some big ticket projects on the horizon that we're going to have to be able to fund.
Correct.
So Brent, I want to get back to Bellwood. We don't have anything budgeted for Bellwood, and I didn't see anything in the capital for it this year. So do we have money for the Bellwood project?
Bellwood's already in the current budget that we're in right now, so that those funds will just be carried over. Because we haven't expended them. So I didn't show them because it's already been accounted for in that manner. Same with the low flow channel on 6th Street. We're hopefully finishing up with our wetland delineation and what we have to do with that project as well. So those projects that we are in the current budget that we haven't done, they're just being carried forward.
Right, once we budget them once, we don't want to confuse everybody and put another number in there so that everybody thinks we're adding to it or budgeting it twice, yeah. So.
Of course, we could do that, and then we could just transfer that money over to the next project.
So anyway, so I just want you to be aware that even though it looks like we're $250,000 to the good, which I guess realistically you could look at it that way, we're not putting aside the amount of money that we normally would or should be for road projects right now. So just something to keep in mind. All right, your next thing. One second. checking things off on my list here. Oh, I know what I was going to do. Okay. There was one item on your desk tonight that had the general revenue breakdown. This, I just wanted you to, kind of to go along with, the $250,000 that was in your remaining balance. I just wanted you to see on the revenue side, we had budgeted $18,962,033 for the current year. I'm projecting that revenue, like we talked about, $19,157,391. So we're projecting it to be a little bit higher. But for next year, without that $1.2 million transfer, I'm anticipating revenues to be down $18,931,124. So actually a decrease in revenue from our current year till next year of about $226,000 is my estimate. So multiple reasons for that. We talked about the telecommunications tax being less, home rule sales tax being less than I originally had thought, replacement tax being down, the court fees being down, seized vehicle being down, tipping fees are down, interest is down, and then obviously no increase to the property tax. So, so this is something to keep in mind, that as things look really good, our revenues are going to be down next year. So just want you to see that.
Yes, Marcia?
But our municipal share from the state is actually up.
Our share for sales tax is doing well. Our share for income tax is up, correct. It's up to $105 per capita, yes. That is helping us, otherwise we would be a lot worse.
Well, I understand those are estimates. The market lost 1,000 points today. So, everything, their budget's just like our budget. They give us a number, and that's usually a pretty good number, but if the economy starts to wane, those numbers get a little funky. Yes, ma'am?
That's another thing I wanted to talk about tonight. The market's down because of the coronavirus, and I'm just wondering if it gets as bad as some people are predicting it might, if we're going to have some type of, plan for the city.
We will, and it will be administered through the health department, the county health department, which serves the city also. So I would think that if this continues to progress, what we'll need to have is a meeting with Amanda Mail's team and see what they've done with the CDC. First of all, it's going to be a national, state, local issue. Everybody thought that it might die out by now, but it's proving to be very strong, and the incubation period is such that it's surprising people who don't know that they're sick, and then all of a sudden they're sick and they've been around everybody else, affecting everybody else. It's of significance. The World Health Organizations has it at highest alert, and so does North Korea now. South Korea. North Korea doesn't tell us anything. So there are people discussing this on a daily basis. So right now, I'm hoping that they start building a stockpile of medicine for it that can shorten the duration of it. But we'll see.
So your next document would be Exhibit B, which is your non-union wages. Like I'd mentioned before, this reflects a 2.5% increase, which is consistent with all of the union wages as well. There's only one person that we were asking for more than the 2.5%, which is, I think we mentioned it maybe during your budget process, but that would be community development. Asking for an additional $1,000 over the 2.5% for Kathy Crawford. And that was due to her going to get training to be certified
for
permit technician, so that she can now issue permits. Correct? If there's any other questions here, move right along. And And per contract below, the police chief's salary has to be 6% over that of the deputy chief's, and the deputy chief's has to be 6% over the sergeant's. So, all right. Last but not least, you have a page on your desk for new initiatives. Fire department, community, oh, that just, community development, that's on there again, just because it's a new initiative. And the police department with the 2 part-time people. So these are the only new initiatives for this year. The 2 firefighters, and the police department and the 2 part-time people. So that will be up to you whether to approve those, approve one of them, approve none of them. Obviously, these are ongoing costs, so something to think about. And obviously, both chiefs are here if anybody's got any questions.
Alderman Porter?
Yeah, Chief, the community service officer, is this adding another one? We already have one community service officer, correct?
No, it's going to be, you are correct, we have one community policing coordinator, which is Officer Blankenship. This is going to be for a civilian part-time position to strictly just manage the fleet and fleet maintenance.
Oh, that's
Yeah. And then the other one will be kind of a joint effort, and they will be helping with code ordinance violations.
Alderman Snow?
So Gene, sorry, Becky, looking at this sheet with the new initiatives, you put the salary and then the benefits. Out of curiosity, when we go back to the Exhibit B, where you've got all the salaries for everybody, that doesn't include the benefits. That's their actual salary base.
Correct. That is just their salary
So there's
base.
additional FICA and everything else and retirement.
Correct,
Okay.
yep, which I already have factored into the budget. Yep, yep.
More questions for Becky?
So we will have one more meeting before the first reading of the budget ordinance. So, I mean, at that time, if you want to address any of these, or if you want to do it tonight, whether you want things put in the budget, taken out of the budget, I can take those comments now or then.
Your Honor?
Alderman Snow?
So when we were talking, for instance, the mosquito thing, we'll get a revised page for that, or?
Well, that's the
or-
hard part
Or do
about.
we need to make an
on
amendment
paper.
to do that? Does that make it easier for everybody to accomplish that? or-
I guess I just need direction to put it, if you want it put in there. Remember then that 251,000 remaining balance, then you'd be decreasing that.
Or we can get a lot more sprays.
But you'd get more sprays. Brent's hoping you take that whole 250 and put it towards Logan Avenue or Harrison Avenue, but
So we already discussed 35,000, right?
Well, we hadn't, you had just said.
Okay, well, I would recommend we put 35,000 in for the mosquitoes, and if we don't need to use that much, that would seem to me be the maximum amount, because every 3 weeks, 12 weeks in summer, so we can put that in. If we don't use it, it'll roll over to next year. Rather than have to come back for, talk about it again and again. Nobody has any disagreement about that.
they would eat that up, yes. Anything else? That's all. Any direction on the 2 firefighters or the part-time police employees?
Yes, Alderman Porter.
Well, personally, I'm okay with the boots on the ground, with the firefighters and the community service officer. I think that's a good idea, especially in today's world.
Anybody else?
Becky, are you looking for essentially a show of hands so you can put it into the budget for consideration?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering whether to put it in or take it out. Obviously, this would eat up pretty much all of your balance. Those are not in that total right now. Those are not in the budget right now. So you take that 251,000, subtract out another 28 for mosquitoes. Well, I already had 8 in there, so. Let's see. So you're at 223, minus 176,000 for fire, that leaves 47, minus 3678 for police, you're at 10,222. Brent, what can you do with 10,222?
He'll take it.
But just so you know, next year, he's going to need $800,000. So all the expenses that you just approved, those will roll into next year, and we're probably going to, be looking for that much more money for the roads. So just something to think about.
Alderman Snow.
Just out of curiosity with the, and I realize you're not going to directly necessarily supervise their everyday activity. I assume you will be more prone for dispatching them. So would the intent of the two community people be they would be ticketing, or just giving the warnings like Kara does to get compliance, and maybe pursue more ticketing that might be a revenue source just to offset the cost? Just tossing that out there.
What I'm hoping for is there's sometimes a communication breakdown on the complaints of whether it's a right-of-way issue or a private property issue. And I think with another boot on the ground, that'll help alleviate a lot of the chasing information down before the citations issued. As far as ticketing, they have to be served due notice, and then a ticket citation follows that.
So you wouldn't anticipate an increase in citations just because we would have this individual with boots on the ground?
I would hope that we would increase the citations.
So it might offset some of the cost. That was my point, that you might, small drop in the hat, because Al's guys get the bulk.
That's all I got then, if anybody has any questions. Like I said, two weeks from now, I don't have anything specific. We'll have the budget back on the agenda, and at that time, if there's items that you want to bring up, if there's anything before then, please let me know, because obviously the closer we get to that first reading of the budget, I'm trying to hurry and make changes and make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. So obviously, the earlier the better. So, thank you.
Alderman Snow.
So we do have deadline issues, just to point that up, so we don't wind up in a crisis like we did a couple years ago with the levy. So just pointing that out, that it's a timely matter thing, not just sit on it to the last minute. And on that note, should we have discussion on the first reading, not just have a silent reading?
Becky?
I was looking at the city attorney.
Give me a second.
I mean, realistically, with the information I received tonight, I can plug everything in. I really don't want to reprint everything for you. I could have it available like I do tonight, so everybody can take a look at and see what it looks like. And then we can go from there.
In previous years, we used a transmittal system where you would fill out questions that you had for Becky on a transmittal and hand them in to the clerk to give to Becky, so she knew to anticipate what we might talk about. That should eliminate the need to go through the entire budget instead of having a silent reading. I think we can furnish you forms, and the reason we use transmittals is that was probably 7 or 8 years ago at a minimum, maybe 12 years ago. It was a while. You can send emails. Does everybody have email?
They all have a City of Belvidere email address. that they can use or they can use as well. I encourage you for city business to use your city email. With respect to Alderman Snow's question, and the reason I hesitated was because there's the general rule and there's our local rules. The general rule is you cannot take action on an item that's not on the agenda. You're always free to discuss items, though, even if they're not on the agenda. Your local code says, I'll just read it, every ordinance shall be, it only applies to ordinances, every ordinance shall be introduced by being placed on the agenda for first reading. The ordinance shall not actually be read aloud by the chair unless the concurrence of the majority of the aldermen then holding office want him to. I paraphrase that, obviously. Every ordinance then shall lie over until the next regular meeting of the city council, provided that the layover may be waived only by concurrence of 2/3 of all the aldermen then holding office, which we've done occasionally to do that. So a very literal reading of your code does not prohibit you from discussing it at first reading. And I would say you're not prohibited from doing that. That certainly was not the intent of the rule, nor what we've done in the past, but you could do it. You could also always bring it back to the committee between the two readings as well, which is what we've done more often than not. For example, on planning and zoning matters, when you yourself asked that to occur for additional discussion.
My concern is the time constraint.
Yep.
I don't have any big issue with the budget as it is, but the fact is that, if it is going to be a problem for somebody that we're going to have discussion, let's get it over and done with so we don't wind up having to postpone it and have an emergency meeting unnecessarily to iron anything out. I'm
Correct.
just tossing that out there. I don't have a preference one way or the other at this point.
Correct. So obviously, if you wish to, and the chair concurred, you could discuss it at first reading to some extent. Keep in mind, any changes would be made at second reading, but. Sure.
Anybody have anything else this evening? Seeing no show of hands or additional conversation, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Ratcliffe, may I have a second? Alderman Porter, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.